Welcome, dear sacred soul, to the podcast for the soul. My name is June Jared, and I'm your host. This podcast is all about soul evolution, comprehending higher consciousness, integrating more love, more peace, more grace into your being and onto the earth. This podcast is part of the Academy for the Soul. To start your soul evolution journey, we have an online quiz ready for you. It will help you identify which evolutionary stage your soul is at right now. Check it out on academyforthesoul.org. Today I'm here with Martin Albisetti. A very exciting conversation ahead of us. And the reason why you are the first guest in our podcast is so interesting. The universe, God Source did this in such a beautiful way again. And before I'm asking you to introduce yourself, I just want to go into this thread of why I believe you are here today. The first time we met, was, looking back on it, such a special moment for me. And I'd be curious to investigate and just kind of feel a little more on where were you at that time, but to just let the listeners of this podcast episode know, I was studying graphic design, and it was about 10 years ago, I think. 10, 11 years ago, maybe. Quite some time ago.
Something like that. Yeah.
And it was my third out of 4 years of this study. And the way that study was built is we had 3.5 to 4.5 days, depending on the year, where we were in an atelier or a design agency, a company, and we worked there with already educated designers. And then 1 to 1.5 days, we had to go to school. And you were one of the teachers at the SFGBB, the Schule für Gestaltung Bern-Biel, which translates to the School for Design Bern and Biel, which are two cities here in Switzerland. And I remember we walked in, just tapping back into that memory. Come along with me.
I do. I'm already there.
You're already there. We walked into the classroom, and one of the first things after you introduced yourself by name, we had like 5 or 6 people in the class. We were a rather small class. You said to us, I don't have a curriculum. I don't know what I'm here to teach you. You tell me why you're here. Oh boy, and then it started. I remember we had not just that first time we met, it took weeks for us to stay in that conversation. It took weeks for us to investigate that question with you, because of course the first answer that was coming up for many of us in that class was, well, because I have to be here, because it's part of the education program, because I need to learn about film history and filmmaking. That was the main modality that you were there to teach us, right? But in essence, nobody could answer this question, so we were all pretty lost. Yeah. And what you did there was, it was so profound, because it made me question so much of my choices, and it made me take the steering wheel of my life's path back into my own hands a little bit more again.
Yep.
Yeah. And that moment, probably everyone in class, but I speak for myself, I knew, okay, this is going to be different. These 6 months that we have with you, they're going to be different. There's a different learning that's going to come in. And I, at that time, was at a stage where I was wearing the mask of the clown a lot. That was like my survival mechanism. I was in a deep depression. Beneath it all, I was really unhappy. I was dealing with sexual orientation questions within, a lot of confusion, a lot of fog. So I was not in a healthy state internally, but still trying to bring lightness through the mask of the clown, which was fun here and there. The clown can be fun. But that's where I was at when I met you, and I think we're going to lean into all the things that happened in these 6 months, because zooming out again over the last 10 years, a lot of what happened there evolved on my side, and I believe on your side too. So Martin Albisetti, welcome to this very special podcast episode.
Thank you for having me. Yes, I do remember. I do remember. I do remember the fifth floor of this hot tin building. It was summer, I guess, as we met, and this building is very famous getting hot in summer. So it was hot anyways, and and yeah, this question. It's funny though, because you were one of the few who really got my intention of the question. Because if we're asking this question in German, it implies two answers. Why are you here today? Or why are you here in this life? And you got immediately the second part, the part that I'm interested in. And of course, I had to teach you the theory of film making, the theory of storytelling. And for me, that was the opportunity to dive in the question of being alive with you guys. That's what I did, and that's why I took this class to this level, because the school, of course, the intention of the school was just teach you guys on a theoretical level what filmmaking is all about, and I took the opportunity to dig deeper with you guys.
You really did. Well done.
Yeah. Um, where was I at that stage in my life? I was fully in my own crisis. Crisis meaning in my own transition that began almost 10 years earlier when I studied film in the US. And when I came back to Switzerland, I knew filmmaking is not a business here. I cannot make movies here as I intended to do. So once again in my life, I found myself asking, "What is my purpose?" That may sound arrogant, but the thing with me is I'm getting good at many things quickly. So that's why I started to ask myself, what is my talent? Because I'm good in graphic design, I was good in filmmaking, I'm good in cooking, I'm good in mentoring, I'm good in teaching. So what is my real purpose? So that took me into a fast crisis almost 10 years ago. And then I knew what to do. I knew a long time before, but around the time I worked with you guys, I knew I had to jump my cliff
Wow.
into the abyss of the unknown.
Wow. And we got to read a little bit about that on your website. And of course, there's little segments of that story. But for me, it's really interesting because I didn't really know that at the time, right? That you are also just jumping into the abyss, as you say. And out of that jump, I know today something really beautiful, something really special was born and continues evolving and has grown. And we have many touching points throughout the years. But I would love to speak a little bit to the crisis, right? Like you studied in the US filmmaking. You said you realized that what you learned there or what worked there wouldn't work here. So when you jumped into the abyss, what changes in your life started happening there from that moment onward?
What changes did happen? Um, hmm, almost everything changed. I mean, maybe we should explore what this jump means. This jump means letting everything behind that I null in my brain. So all my belief systems I had to quit. That's what actually happened. The result of that was that I lost many friends. I lost almost all my business that I had before, because from now on I had to find my own journey, the journey that's in this area of myself, the journey that I call the Tao, the path of the Tao. And what's called the unknown is just the unknown for my brain. It's for my heart. It's not an unknown. It's a remember. It's a remembering of what my path is.
Mm.
So the crisis, it's interesting because crisis means, it's a Greek word, is meaning change. So the crisis is the change. So we go through many changes in life, but this change is the change of consciousness, I guess, because the change is coming from within and not from the outside. And I guess you know that very well as well.
Yeah, but I sense many of the people listening to this podcast, for them, it's very valuable to hear these steps because, and maybe you can relate to this when I speak of my current version and I speak of the recent evolutions that I've undergone. For many, they are very far away, very ungraspable, untouchable. So I would love for everyone listening here to create some relatability, because even though I at the
Okay.
Academy for the Soul and you have the Reformat school, right? And we are teachers for so many, and we are gurus for so many, or just translators for so many. It's important for everyone, I feel, to understand we walked a certain path through crisis as well. So they can source maybe some hope or at least some inspiration in that, right? And
Okay. So what? Yeah.
yeah, and
Go
so
on.
when we look at that, what you just described, right? When you're in the crisis, and your mind cannot comprehend the unknown, but you just said so beautifully, your heart is starting to remember. So it's not really the unknown for the heart. But in the moment where you jumped, were you aware of that this is remembering? Or was it really scary? Like, was it completely unknown and it felt unknown when you lost your friends and you started changing your career?
Um, of course, it was scary, but at the same time, the known, the thing is, in English, that's so beautifully said. I had to lose my knowledge, and I had to find my knowing. The knowing is something is it's like it's the pure intuition, and remembering the intuition is so is clear. The thing is, it's not, you cannot put it in words, it's more a feeling. So following the feeling was very easy. To me, it felt like s- it felt very strange because it felt I fell off reality, the reality I have known for 40 years, for 40 years. Um, and the steps into the unknown felt right, felt good, but I had to like twitch myself to ask myself, is this real? That's what had happened. I have a very um, famous scene from a movie. It's called Indiana Jones. It's very popular. There is a scene actually when he has to walk into the void, when he has to find the Holy Grail, what actually represents the Tao, um, and the camera is moving like that, and we can see there is a floor, but just not for his eyes. That's how I felt also. See, so and I guess you made a familiar experience when you let go of the known.
Yeah. What a beautiful picture you just painted. And it made me think to one of the exercises that you gave us back then, 10 years ago. It was pick one of your favorite movies and one of your favorite movie characters and go through an analysis, pick your favorite scenes from that movie. And then towards the end of that exercise, I think 2 or 3 weeks later, we had to present the character and the scenes and why we love them. And what we learned from it is because we saw so much resonance and self-recognition in the hero's journey of that character and where we were at or our characteristics. And I chose
Yes.
Pirates of the Caribbean, Captain Jack Sparrow, right?
Oh,
Ye-
yeah. Yes.
Yeah, that was a
Yeah.
really funny moment. Really nice click that
Ac
was created there. Yeah.
Actually, when I'm working with the people finding their talent, we have to acknowledge their heroes. And if we find like 4 or 5 heroes, there will be a red thread that gives us the insight of what your real talent is. So would be
Absolutely.
interesting today to find what Jack Sparrow has still in in for you. Okay.
It would be, and let me tell you this, I have returned again and again to that metaphor because it became a thing actually that I told some people on my life's journey. I have funnily, of course, I said that with a lot of humor. I have the Jack Sparrow
Sure.
syndrome. From the
Mhm.
outside, it seems insane and undoable and completely unplanned, and even
Mhm.
one doubts, will he make it to the goal? Will he make it to the destiny, right? But something within him seems like it knows, even though it doesn't always fully know. And I return to that moment many times when I speak to people in coaching sessions or in reviews or just in everyday conversations. So that stuck with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See. Yeah. Pretty basic. Yeah. We're 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 simple creatures, I tend to say.
We are.
Because what comes in resonance with us is in this area, and that's simple.
Yeah. And as you say this, I just want to peek a little deeper into that moment when you said somehow, in the transition phase, coming through the gateway of that crisis into a new version of yourself, a jumping over the cliff into the nothing to somehow land on something and be born again in a new way you didn't know yet, right? Um, was there something in that time that helped you tap into feeling rather than thinking?
Yeah, before when you ask me how to give a sense to the audience, how do I feel the crisis, or how do I feel my path is, what astonished me in this time was the fact that I have this image of the donkey following this carrot, and the donkey wants to bite this carrot. And I remembered that is my whole life. My whole life is me being the donkey and wanting to reach this carrot. And the carrot stands for my passionate element or my purpose. And I asked myself why all the time this distance. And then I figured this is just fear. And the fear is to actually grab the carrot and to bite the carrot feels like life would end. And that's actually what it is. Because what life will end, it's the life of the ego. Because when you bite the carrot, everything is starting, everything is happening for you. But to give the audience maybe the impression, I'm certain anybody knows his carrot. And this is a tiny, tiny, tiny little, I don't know, maybe it's a feeling, maybe it's a voice that tells you, if, if I would like to go there, go there. But the everyday is telling us, not now, not now, not yet, not yet. So what I really did, I tapped into that. feeling, and then I grab that carrot, and since 10 years, I'm biting off that carrot, and it's never gonna end. That's how I I explain it.
Amazing metaphor. And it's so beautiful how it weaves into, the teachings of reformat of your school and of the Academy for the Soul's teaching, because we speak of this phase as being in the soul evolutionary stage of the bridger, where you start
Mhm,
recognizing your ego and your identity and the attachments of your ego, and you started recognizing the carrot, the soul, right? That little thing that always seems to stay there and give you food and give you nourishment and give you good taste and
mhm,
vibrancy in life, right?
mhm,
And so, one thing that stood out for me, getting to know more about you over the years from afar, but always, seeing some little things online, getting some invites on WhatsApp. You stayed in Switzerland. I moved to Bali. I traveled around the world a little bit. Currently, we're both seated in Switzerland. And one of the beautiful parallels, and where I drew so much inspiration, but also soul food and soul recognition from, was the practice of yoga, right? And I know, as a part of the foundational pillars of your school of Reformat, you offer Haubisipni yoga.
it's
Haubisipni.
at 6:30 in the morning. Yeah, and it's Albisetti, that's my name as a kid. People named me Haubisipni because it's Albisetti, and it's very close, so they make a joke.
That's so
That's
cute.
how I stuck that's why I stuck with the name, and it's because it's 6:30 in the morning. I believe that's a nice name to
It's
give to that
beautiful
yoga.
because you write it out as one word, Haubisipni, and I had to read it 3 times to be like, what does that mean? What style of yoga is this? I've never heard of this style of
This
yoga.
is my style. Yeah.
And then I
It is kind
Googled
of my style because it's only 30 minutes long, because I wanna engage people to practice yoga even though it's just a half an hour, and for a half an hour in the morning, it's harder to have an excuse. That's also, uh, part of my purpose. Yeah.
beautiful. And I know you've been doing it for so long. Like, I believe even right after we met, one of the first things
No, it
I
was
learned
before.
about, even before that, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's 15 or 15 years now that I practice yoga.
Wow. Beautiful. And let me ask you this: 40 years plus minus on Earth, you mentioned 40 years as living a life where you weren't connected to your carrot.
Yeah. My soul. Yeah.
You weren't connected to your carrot. But yoga weaved itself in earlier throughout the crisis years. What made you like commit to yoga? What happened that you said, I'm going to lean into this?
I did not commit to yoga. You we have to get back to the year 2011 or 2012, when this was a shop for graphic design. We were 3 or 4 or 5 people doing graphic design or design as such, and we had an acquaintance named Sebastian, and he came in and said one morning, "Guys, I'm worried about our health. What if we would play soccer once a week nearby?" And I said, "No way, because we have no showers. We're gonna be sweaty. That's not what I want to do." And then he said, "Listen, guys, my ex-girlfriend, she just finished her teacher training as a yoga teacher. Why not asking her coming here, teaching us yoga?" And I said, "Yes, that's perfect. So I cannot escape, you know." She came here every Friday and taught us yoga for an hour. So that's how I came to yoga. And not even five, 3 years later, I was hooked. And she said to me, "Look, I want to stop teaching yoga here. So it's up to you to participate in a teacher training. So I took over, and since then I'm teaching yoga as well. And the morning practice I offer is just this is a exercise of discipline to offer. The discipline to my theory is following. I'm a vessel. I have a soul, but the vessel and the soul are not in sync. So every morning is like a boat on the sea sailing through life. And the yoga practice in the morning gives me the opportunity to sync my my destination. That's what it's all about. And because it's every day since 6 years, Monday through Friday, 30 minutes, it's always the same practice, gives us the opportunity to sync with our purpose, with our intention in life. That's what we're doing here every morning.
Beautiful. And such a testimony of how yoga not just gives us that possibility to take care of the physical body and to still the mind a bit, but as you say, really set the sails for your boat. Beautiful picture. So that the boat is going towards its destiny and you can co create that direction because you're listening and you're tapped in. And that's what yoga does for many, for me including. It gives me that capacity to really listen and to really calibrate so that my vehicle,
Yes.
soul and human hand in hand, sail together towards the destiny. Beautiful. And looking back at the last years, I remember one of the times we checked in, you were talking about building out these 3 modules, which now are a foundational piece of your school, of your teachings, right? These 3, they're kind of like steps. I remember you built them as steps. And from afar, I was witnessing and celebrating how these steps were forming. And I felt, although we weren't in touch, but I felt you were so devoted and like so into the details of that, which is one of the things that I cherish about you is every time we speak, you're really zooming in on the details. You're like an individual that manages to really fine tune and clarify. Would you love to share with us a little bit about these 3 steps that have formed over the years and are now an integral part of your school?
Okay. So right from the beginning, for me, it was certain that there are these 3, I'm calling them modules. Um, but at that time, I did not at all what the content of these modules are going to be. So it took me like, I started the school and it took me 5 years to find them out with my students. Um, Basically, the first module is who am I? That's our first goal. We need to know who we are, what our talent is, and what our want from the world is. I need to know my fears. I need to know my characteristics. And that's the first module. Essentially, what we're trying to do is get rid of the ego and evolving the Tao. And for those who are very they want to know it fast, you can what I do often is take a picture where you were not older than 7 years old and look at this picture and everything is there. So first module is we're going back to the state we were not older than 6, 7 years old because we have to be in that state. The mind has to go back to that state. The second module is called finding your elements, where you can perform your talent. In German, it's called Wirkungsfeld. That's where I can really change something. And what's very important to say is it's a synthesis, meaning what I'm doing is interesting for me as well as for the visitors, because I'm beginning to become a scientist. I want to do research. So I strongly believe when I do what my purpose is, I'm going to be a scientist. I'm going to have questions I want to explore. And the third module is very simple, is to actually bring that into life, actually realizing it, bringing it into the world. And that's the hardest part. So these are steps as well. And you can imagine the third module, there are a few who are willing and strong enough to challenge their inner dragon, calling it that.
That's so beautiful. That's one of the things that, keeps echoing through my mind, how you're always coming in with these hero stories and mirroring what you're teaching now on soul consciousness with your background of film history and the study of archetypes and the study of these characters in movies, which are reflective of our life's journey to the inner dragon.
Yeah, but what we have to know is, the whole hero's journey is very old, It's not about movies, it's not about stories, it's actually a concept of nature, because these archetypes we're working with, you can observe them in nature as well.
So beautiful, this three-stage module, because within the Academy for the Soul, we also have three stages. We have the seekers for change, then we have the bridgers, and then we have the awakening guides. And for the awakening
Mhm,
guides, that's the ones that, you know, are leaning into courage the most to let go of everything that feels safe for the ego to come into the soul essence and express
mhm,
that on earth. This is beautiful how
mhm.
a very similar stream of consciousness through a very different lens has manifested on earth. And this is why I was so
I
excited to
guess at the
talk to
end,
you. Yeah.
yeah, I guess at the end we're doing the exact same work. What I'm really trying to do is to have an audience that is not spiritual at all, And what I'm trying to do is really translate into a very simple language, a language that everybody can understand. So my youngest student is maybe 16, my oldest is almost 70, and they come of all walks of life. So there is no preparation needed. It's just the curiosity of finding the the inner calling. It doesn't matter what background, doesn't matter what kind of spirituality, doesn't mind religion or, worth or whatever. That's what I try to do, to really bone it down, to have it in a language that everybody can understand.
Yeah. Seems that that is one of the biggest challenges it is it? Because many of us have different approaching points to our evolutionary journey or our hero's journey, and it takes such an capacity to navigate the waters of languages and translations so that people can dock on to what we're doing and how we're doing it. And one of the things that stood out for me in one of our last conversations as well is that you spoke of you being a challenger. One of your core talents, or your core talent in essence, is you're a challenger, right? You're an investigator, you're a challenger. And I remember we spoke about that, and it lit me up because it led to us talking and planning out an event where we are co-creating. I'm coming to your space, to your studio, and we're co-creating
Mhm,
something.
mhm,
And there was this spark in me because there was a certain challenge, and no judgment, no negative or positive, but just an evolutionary challenge of leaning into something unknown again, merging frequencies. And so I would love to investigate a little bit more with you. How did your awareness of this essence of you this challenger component, where did that start growing? Did you learn that as you were working with your students over the 5 years as you built out these models? Did that come earlier? Did you know that earlier? Remembered that earlier? Or did that come once you've set up the structure and the formula for your school after kind of test running it with your students and your clients?
Okay. So when I studied film, I came across with the theory when you're writing a screenplay, there are three kinds of journeys for a hero. There is the learning journey, there is the journey of how do you call it in English? Of confronting, and there is the journey of the test. And I early on acknowledged that I'm on this second journey. I'm the journey of the fighting, you know, the it needs to be it needs to be like that. And when I read that, for me it makes so sense. You know, it's a theory for writing screenplays, but I started to ask myself, but wait a minute, we are humans writing stories about humans. So this theory needs to apply also to us as a species, you know? And I think we forgot that because it's so theoretically, it's just used for writing screenplays, but we forgot that we as such are in the same kind of categories. So it helped me a lot to actually not even remind myself, but to acknowledge that's who I am since I was born. So that's not new, you know? And you can ask yourself, in your case, on what kind of journey are you? The learning journey means that's someone who is very curious all the time, wants to explore. The moment you have explored it, it's it get it gets boring. So you want to have a new journey. That's the learning journey. That's the ones who wants to learn. And the confrontational journey is he wants to test his theory. That's what it's all about, you know? He has a meaning, he wants something, and he wants to test if it's gonna hold or not. And the test journey, it's about letting go. You know, these are the ones who know everything, also even tired of living. So what they need to let go, because these ones are the ones who know it all. So, and in my school, we have these three categories, and they help a lot just to acknowledge, yes, that's who I am. So, in my case, I knew it before. When I read it, it felt that's me. And since then, I I give myself the permission to be who I am. And that's what it's all about in this module one. It's just, that's me. It's no news, you know? I often tell people, if you're gonna be surprised, we're on the wrong path. It's it's remembering, that is me. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. To me, it does, and I'm sure to many of the listeners too. And what I notice in my body as well, and I would love to highlight that as you just spoke these words to all of you listening or watching, see what your breath does when you start to grasp that, right? It's a relief, even though it comes with a certain, maybe a fear to witness, oh, there's a
Yeah.
challenge because there's a change ahead. And there's something different coming. And you mentioned it at the beginning of our conversation. You lost a lot of friends, for example. Work that falls away because it's not in resonance anymore, right? Relationships that fall apart because they have outdated themselves. We've learned the lesson or we attached to something just a little too long or too long too
Yeah,
long.
yeah. Where did you get excited? Where did
When
you
did
get
I
excited?
when did I get excited?
Yes. When did your pulse changed?
You mean in
Hmm.
this conversation or in general with
No, with these three journeys,
when did my when
the pitch of the three journeys, the learning journey, the confrontational journey, or the letting go journey.
where which one initiated? Good reflective question.
Yes.
Um,
It's very a tiny fraction of an impulse.
yeah, I remember very clearly, and I share this story quite a lot. When I completed the graphic design journey and I completed the study, I worked in that field for 3 months. And I was working in a beautiful atelier, amazing team. We had a lot of fun. However, I was sitting one storage beneath the ground floor on a screen the whole day. And I was like, that's not happening. So then the curiosity, that spark of remembering I am something outside of that, or there is a part of me that recognizes itself outside of that, came up. Spent half the money I made in these 3 months. I flew to Bali and I embraced everything I could around yoga, around breath work. I had a relationship with a Balinese man for a while. So everything outside of the norm that I lived myself into, I wanted to go and explore, right? So that was the remembrance of I'm an explorer. The adventurous part of me came alive. And then eventually the stage of investigating and rubbing came in when I split apart from that partner. And I had to rub against a lot of discomfort in terms of what I got used to. Because with flying to Bali, not everything was left behind on that flight.
Mhm, mhm,
Old identities, old attachments, old fears. Not old, rather new ones, because they weren't there since eternity. They accumulated over the identity of June building itself. And so I had to release them. And then the rubbing came and the wanting to know it all and the confronting came after that breakup. And how did you word the third stage? So I use your words
It's
here.
the letting go. It's a test, you know, you need to let go. You need to let go of everything, and then you have to circle back into your village to to bring the wisdom back to your village.
Yeah. The letting go. I'm struggling to
That's what you're
pinpoint.
in right now.
Yeah, I'm struggling to pinpoint one moment. I've gone through cycles of returning, bringing it back home again,
Mhm,
right? And now is one of the, I can only speak from the moment of now, but it's one of the most refined cycles of this letting go and surrendering myself onto the carpet of the soul, really, right?
mhm.
And that's where everything that's visible now is being born out of.
What's interesting about these three journeys, what we just discussed is the journey itself having these three steps. Okay. Every journey starts with curiosity, then everything becomes a test where I have to confront, and then there's a moment of letting go. That's the hero's journey. What what we're discussing before is I'm going to be born and then I will die in this characteristic. And what it actually means, if you circle back to the matrix of a soul, it gives you an average where your soul is standing on its level. And this, for us as the school, is very important to characterize that so we can see where what actually your soul is wanting to live for, you know. And that's when, for instance, it's very important to engage into being curious, you know. It's very important because you have to collect data as a soul. If you're in this confrontational game, it's just about in this whole life, it's all about its confrontations and also maybe letting go. My my life's partner, Bettina, she's doing the deep stuff in the school. She's on a test journey. This her whole life is about letting go.
This brings me to one more question.
Sure,
The
shoot.
question of why. Because I know with this conversation, people that have listened up until this moment, that's not just the ears that are listening. There is an evolution happening in their consciousness as they're listening to our stories, the way we put things, the way we word things. It's not just mental, it's an experience. To me, it is. And when we go to the core of why choosing to lean into these stages, into that process, why choosing to let go, how would you answer that? What is your why to not have continued on what was before?
Um, Pretty simple. What I did before, it didn't touch me. I had the very interesting opportunity to have the same time shooting my first feature-length movie and at the same time having this school. And even though the shooting went super well, the acting of the performers were perfectly, everything was in sync, timing was nice, my directing went well, it didn't do anything to me. Intellectually, it did. It felt good. It felt confirmational. But when I spent a day, at that time it was always Mondays, I had 4 students for this test round, and something else was happening entirely. Something it touched me, you know? We went to a zone every Monday, and we touched each other. And to be honest, before that time, maybe I I got touched twice or 3 times in my life. And from then on, it touched me every day. My work is touching me every day. So it's hard to explain to someone who is rarely touched. What does touch mean? Touching means being in resonance with the now, with the interaction with others or not others. It doesn't matter. At the end, it has nothing to do with people. It has to do with, are you in your element? And Sir Ken Robinson is one of my heroes. He says it's about being passionate, and we often mistake being passionate meaning having fun. And being passionate at the core means suffering. And that's crazy because being touched and suffer at the same time, that's the moment you know you are in touch with your soul. That was the difference between the work with the students and the work on a film set. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And what a beautiful example to lay this answer onto. And I would love to motivate everyone listening to this. If there is a comment section beneath, reflect on that. Reflect on which of the 3 stages you would see yourself in. If you need some help with that, we're going to leave you with all the contact details of Martin Albisetti. We from the Academy for the Soul, we have a quiz ready for you where you can identify your soul evolutionary stage through our filter. Go and do both. Go and
Gonna be
explore both.
the result is gonna be the same.
It's probably going to
Yeah.
be the same. And what a beautiful way to lean towards an ending of this episode, speaking to the suffering that comes with living true passion. One of my teachers that has initiated me and inspired me a lot, brought me to the path of Kundalini yoga. And there is a couple of teachers that come from the Kundalini yoga lineage, and one of them, Yogi Bhajan. There's a lot of things around his story that are a little messy. I want to lean into the core teachings though, and he speaks of the 7 stages or 7 steps to happiness, and the second last one is the sacrifice to purpose. And that just mirrors exactly what you said, right? Like true happiness, being touched, comes with sacrificing everything that does not touch you, that does not touch your heart. So I want to thank you for this beautiful immersion, this beautiful journey through some topics. I'm sure there's so much more to explore. There always is, but we'll keep it at this size. Maybe we'll make another episode together one day. In not too many weeks, we will co-create an afternoon together in Switzerland, and maybe out of that, another conversation results or evolves. I look forward to that. And before we close this episode, there's one fun question that I would love to ask, completely out of context, maybe, maybe not. What is one thing about you that if you meet somebody for the first time, you would never tell them?
I'm an open book.
You
You
know.
can ask me anything. Sorry. You can ask me anything.
Oh, that doesn't work anymore when we are at that level of honesty and transparency.
It's, it's yeah, because the moment they of course, there will be many, many ego deaths ahead, okay? I'm not enlightened or something like that. Honest, I don't want to impose that, but on the stage I am, the knowledge I have, the knowing I'm I'm in it. It's, I said that to my students all the time. You can ask me anything. The question is, do you dare?
Yeah. So, what was the most outrageous,
Hmm.
special, not usual ego death you went through in your lifetime?
So there are actually two. The one took place in the year 2015. I was in my teacher training as a yogi, and the, we had to meditate for 3 hours, 10 days in a row. And I I died. I don't know if you guys know, if you have to sit down, if you have to sit upright, my knees start hurting like 5 minutes in, and I have to do that for 3 hours. And after I survived the first day, I have I know there are 9 more days. The second day is even worse. The third day is even worse. So my ego broke on the fifth day, and it it got loud within me. It really got loud. And from then on, I acknowledged the world in a different realm. That's my first. And my second was I got really sick in the year of 2022. I call that I did a shadow experiment with myself. I observed my fears very up close. I got a cancer diagnosis, um, pancreas cancer, and then I had to ask myself how I approach this, and I chose the way of yoga, and I told my doctor he can put me into the tube a month later, and everything has disappeared because I knew because of the diagnosis what to do, and that was my second ego death, the death of overcoming my fears, meaning not having them behind. Now I have them here in front of me. That was my second ego death. The acknowledgement that they are there my entire life because that's their purpose. Is that an answer?
It absolutely is. And if for anybody not, how can they reach out to you to ask more about this?
Good. sentences into the comment section
Comment
and let me
section.
know what they wrote
I'll
or
forward
call
that to
me.
you. We'll leave your email, we'll leave your social media, we'll of course leave your website in the show notes and in the description of this episode. Are there any last closing words you want to speak into the world, into the ears and hearts of everyone listening?
Yeah, you wrote me that question beforehand, and I just have following. Be patient. Your time will come. Be patient. Your time will come.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Martin Albisetti, for your time. It was a fun
Thank you for
pleasure,
having me.
a deep journey, and I look forward to more of our conversations.
Thank you.